If one wishes to learn the way of becoming an immortal and tells this to the virtuous, the saying of living forever without dying is but an empty legend. Lust and greed should be lessened to keep the body healthy, and a heart that deceives no one makes one an immortal. These 4 lines of poetry tell the story of an official. He had spent 20 years studying assiduously by the lamp in his study, with great determination and hard work. But who would have thought that it was all about fate, luck, and destiny? He failed in the imperial examinations repeatedly and had no chance of becoming an official, but had the fortune to become an immortal. During the reign of Emperor Zhenzong, the 3rd emperor of the Great Song dynasty, in the 8th month of autumn in the 4th year of the Jing era, this official made a living by fishing in the waterside area. There were 4 ways of fishing. Those who used the zeng net looked up, those who banged on the sides of the boat made a noise, those who fished with the rod were quiet, and those who cast the net danced about. This official lived in a prefecture called Zhengzhou, and its military title was Dingzhong Army. To the east gate of Zhengzhou, outside what was called Zhejiang Gate, there was a river, which was commonly known as the Sunyang River. Along its course, the vast Yangtze River's water seemed to pour forth, connecting to the East Sea with a thunderous roar. The clear and cold water of this river guards the country, and it can support 1,000,000 soldiers without asking for provisions. On the night of the 14th day of the 8th month, this official released his fishing boat, pushed it away with a punt pole, and rowed it into the middle of the river. The light of the water and the moonlight reflected each other above and below. The official picked up the net with his hand and cast it once in the middle of the river. He cast the net 3 times in a row, but caught not a single fish. Suddenly, he heard someone calling out, "Lu Bendeo, a man of great ambition should strive for glory and distinction. Why are you fishing here and losing your ambition?" The official was startled. The person called him by his full name so intimately. He pulled in the net and looked around in all directions, but saw no one. He cast the net again, and someone called out once more. He looked around again but still saw no one. This happened 3 times like this, and that night he didn't catch any fish. He brought the boat to the shore. On the next night, the 15th, he rowed the boat to the middle of the river again, and someone called his full name, Lu Bendeo, once more. Bendeo became irritated. He put down the net and listened, and found that the voice came from behind. He rowed the boat to the back and looked, and the voice came from among the reeds. When he went into the reeds to search, there was no one there. Wasn't it strange? He rowed back to the middle of the river, cast the net again. It seemed that the net was heavy. When he pulled the net up and looked, Bendeo was both surprised and delighted. He had caught a golden carp with a red tail, about 5 feet long. Bendeo thanked heaven and earth, thinking that he could sell it in the city the next day and have enough food for 3 to 5 days. He brought the boat to the shore, moored it, and put the carp under the boat's planks, keeping it alive in the flowing water. When he was about to go into the cabin to take off his clothes and sleep, he felt hungry and thirsty in his stomach. He looked around the boat, but there was nothing to satisfy his hunger and thirst. What should he do? He thought back and forth and decided that there was an old man named Zhang who ran a village tavern on the riverbank. It would be good to go and buy some wine. He took a wine gourd from the boat and went ashore. He held the punt pole under his left arm and carried the wine gourd in his right hand. Under the moonlight, he walked along the river. He thought to himself, "I wonder if old man Zhang is asleep or not. If he's not asleep, I'll knock on the door and buy some wine. If he's asleep, I'll just have to endure the hunger and thirst and sleep for 1 night." As he walked along, he had gone about half a mile away from the boat when he saw a cluster of houses. This was old man Zhang's place. When he got to the door, he peeked inside to see if there was a light. And indeed, there was a light in old man Zhang's house. How could one tell? There was a poem titled Shi Zhang Yu that described this lamp flame. It scatters not because of the spring rain, nor is it blown to pieces by the east wind. It forms a naturally red flower. How can one plant it with all one's efforts? With its flame, it's hard to hide from the butterflies, and though it blooms, it doesn't attract the bees. In the quiet and elegant hall, it once accompanied a beautiful woman in her spring dreams. When Bendeo saw the light in old man Zhang's house, he called out, "I've come to ask you, sir, to sell me some wine. If you're asleep, that's all right. If you're not, please sell me some." Old man Zhang said, I'm not asleep yet. He opened the door, took the wine gourd from Officer Liu, asked how much wine he wanted, went inside and filled it up, and said, "There is wine, but it's cold wine." Bendeo said to Old Man Zhang, "I have no money tonight. I'll sell the fish tomorrow and then pay you back." Old Man Zhang said, "What's the problem with that?" Old Man Zhang closed the door. Bendeo held the punt pole under his arm and carried the wine gourd. As he walked, he was so hungry that he didn't care that the wine was cold. He drank as he walked and had already drunk 2/5 of it on the way. When he got to the boat, in the moonlight, he saw a man wearing a round-headed gauze hat and a wide-sleeved green silk robe. The man was less than 3 feet tall. He looked at Bendeo and covered his face and cried loudly, "My descendants have all been caught by you." When Bendeo saw this, he was greatly alarmed. There is no such person by the river. Could it be a ghost? He put down the wine gourd and used the punt pole in his hand to strike at the man, shouting, "Hit!" When he struck and looked, the firelight scattered, and there was a loud crash. When Bendeo stared intently, if it hadn't been for his fortune to become an immortal, he would have almost become a lost soul by the river and a drowned man in the waves. There is a poem to prove this. Eminent people often envy the goodness of being an immortal. When will they be on the Penglay Island? In fact, the fairyland lies in people's hearts. Listen to the clear song of Yujia Ao. Fishermen know little about this truth. Without guidance, who can understand it? Where can't you find fish if you want to? There is a path on the Magpie Bridge leading to the way of the immortals. At that moment, when Bendeo looked again, the man with the round-headed gauze hat, the wide-sleeved green silk robe, and who was less than 3 feet tall was gone. Wasn't it strange? When he got to the place where the boat was moored and was about to get on the boat, Bendeo let out a cry of distress. He didn't know where his boat had gone by the riverbank. "I wonder who stole my boat." He looked across the river, and all was silent. Along the lower reaches of the river, there were no boats either. Where could he spend the night? He thought, "No one would steal my boat. I've been fishing for a long time and have never lost my boat before. But today it's gone. If it wasn't stolen by someone from the lower reaches of the river, it must have been stolen by someone from the upper reaches." Bendeo didn't go to the lower reaches to look for the boat. He drank up all the wine in the gourd, threw the gourd on the riverbank, and walked along the bank. He walked from the second watch to the third watch, but where could he find a boat? He thought, "Where should I go tonight?" He walked back and forth, not knowing the way. He came to the front of a manor house. He put down the punt pole and looked in. He saw that there was a light in the manor. Bendeo had no way to retreat or advance. He wanted to call out, but he didn't know anyone in this manor. If he didn't call out, he had no place to stay. So he had to call out, "Is there anyone here? I'm a fisherman. I lost my boat and came here looking for a place to stay. It's late at night and I have no place to sleep. I sincerely hope that the master of the manor can kindly let me stay here for one night." He heard someone in the manor answer, "Coming." "Sir, please wait a moment." It was a woman's voice. The woman opened the manor gate. Bendeo bowed his head and saluted. The woman returned the salute and invited him in, saying, "Sir, please come in and stay for one night before you leave." Bendeo thanked her, held the punt pole under his arm, and followed the woman in. The woman closed the manor gate, led him to the thatched hall, and made him sit down. After asking his name, she said earnestly, "I'm afraid you're hungry, sir. How about I prepare some food and wine for you to satisfy your hunger?" Bendeo said, "Thank you, miss. Just find me a place to stay so that I can get through the night. I'm very grateful for your hospitality." The woman said, "It's all right. There is a place to sleep." Before she finished speaking, they heard someone outside shouting, "Alas! Alas! I didn't provoke you, yet you hit me. This person won't go anywhere else. He must have come to my manor to ask for a place to stay." The person opened the door. Bendeo was startled. "Miss, who is the one shouting outside?" The woman said, "It's my elder brother." Bendeo walked to one side and stood in the dark to take a look. The woman moved to open the door and greeted her brother with a respectful salute. The man kept shouting, "Alas! Alas! Sister, close the door and come in with me. The woman closed the manor gate and invited her brother to sit in the thatched hall. When Bendeo looked at the person in the thatched hall, he let out a cry of distress. My life is over. It was just like pigs and sheep entering a slaughterhouse, step by step walking towards their own death. There is a poem to prove this. He left his first wife and married a second wife. The second wife will never care for the children of the first wife. The first wife passed away while the second wife was still alive, because the enmity between them seems to have no end. Bendeo looked at the person in the thatched hall. It was the man wearing the round-headed gauze hat, the wide-sleeved green silk robe, and who was less than 3 feet tall. I hit him with a punt pole and he died in the river. How could I come to his manor to ask for a place to stay? Bendeo didn't care about the woman anymore. He held the punt pole under his arm, sneaked out of the manor gate, and ran towards the river. It turned out that the man in the manor, after shouting, looked at the woman and said, "Sister, prepare a piece of frankincense and warm a bowl of hot wine for me to drink, to ease the pain on my back." Immediately, the woman prepared it for her brother and served it to him. She asked, "Brother, why were you shouting?" The brother said, "I'll tell you. I didn't provoke him either. I was standing by the river. When I saw that fellow coming back with the wine, I covered my face and cried loudly, 'My descendants have all been caught by you.' That fellow struck me with the punt pole in his hand. I turned into a streak of firelight and ran into the water. That fellow went ashore, and I then moved his fishing boat away. That fellow couldn't find it anywhere. He walked along the riverbank. I thought he wouldn't go anywhere else but would come to my manor to ask for a place to stay." "Sister, did he come to ask for a place to stay?" The sister said, "Who was it?" The brother said, "It was Lu Bendeo, a fisherman." The woman thought to herself, "So this sir is the one who hit my brother. I might as well cover for him." So she replied, "He did come to the manor to ask for a place to stay, but I didn't let him stay. He left on his own. Brother, you've worked hard. Let me prepare a place for you to sleep." Then Lu Bendeo walked along the riverbank in a flurry. From the 3rd watch until almost the 5th watch, his legs and feet ached from walking. Under the bright moon, he saw a large stone and put down his punt pole. He had just rested for a short while when he suddenly heard someone running in a hurry and shouting loudly, "Lu Bendeo, don't run. I'm coming to catch you." Bendeo let out a cry of distress, not knowing what to do. Could it be that man coming to avenge the blow with the punt pole? He picked up the punt pole and stood there, waiting for the person to arrive. Soon the person approached. When he looked, he saw a woman wearing white clothes, holding a package in her hands, and walking up to him. She said, "Sir, you ran away. I couldn't find you behind. I settled my elder brother to sleep and then rushed over. Don't be suspicious. I'm neither a ghost nor an evil spirit. I'm a human being. Look, my clothes have seams, I have a shadow under the moon, and my voice is getting louder. I came to catch up with you on purpose." When Bendeo saw this, he put down the punt pole and asked, "Madam, you rushed over in the middle of the night. I wonder what's the matter?" The woman asked, "Do you have a wife, sir? If you have a wife, I can be your concubine. If you don't have a wife, I'll marry you. There's enough money and valuables in the package for you to live on. Are you willing?" Bendeo thought that such a nice woman, and she was carrying a package of clothes, ornaments, gold, and pearls. This was really something he couldn't have hoped for. Looking at the woman, he said, "Thank you. I've never had a wife before." He threw the punt pole into the river and walked with the woman until dawn, and then they entered Zhengzhou. Bendeo called the woman his wife. The woman asked, "Husband, where should we find a place to settle down?" Bendeo replied, "Don't worry. I'll find a place myself." They walked into the city and saw a sign hanging in front of a house. When they looked at it, it said, "Gu Yulang's Inn." Bendeo went forward and asked, "Which one is Gu Yulang?" The man said, "I am." Bendeo said, "I had a falling out with my father at home, and he drove my wife and me out. We have nowhere to stay. I'd like to ask Yulang for a small room to stay in for 3 to 5 days. When our relatives persuade him and he changes his mind, we'll go back. And we'll surely thank you then." Gu Yulang asked, "Where is the young lady?" Bendeo called out, "Wife, come and meet him." Gu Yulang saw the couple and led them into the inn, to the third room on the south side. He opened the door and got the key. When Bendeo saw the room, he was very pleased. That day, they made a fire to cook and eat. They sold some of the gold and pearls and bought some trunks, bedding, and clothes. They stayed in this inn for about half a year. Bendeo looked at his wife and said, "If we keep spending like this, even a mountain of gold will be used up eventually." The woman laughed loudly and said, "Don't worry." She took out something from the box and showed it to her husband, "We can live on this for a lifetime." It's just as the saying goes, don't say that men have no ambition, women can still distinguish between the worthy and the unworthy. At that moment, the woman took out a divination plate with a round sky and a square earth. When Bendeo saw it, he asked his wife, "How do you know how to use this?" The woman said, "When my father was alive, he served as the governor of Zhengzhou. His surname was Qi and his name was Wenshu. My nickname is Xiaonu. Unfortunately, when he left his post, our group encountered a storm on the river. My parents and the attendants all died. I was saved in the manner by the man you hit with the punt pole, the one wearing a round-headed light gauze hat, a wide-sleeved green silk robe and less than 3 feet tall. So I regarded him as my elder brother. That's why your boat disappeared. It was taken away by him. When you came to the manor to ask for a place to stay, when he asked me, I lied to him. I had the intention of becoming your wife. Do you know how I have this divination plate? When I was young, I learned 3 things from my father. First, writing and reading. Second, writing spells and using water with spells. Third, fortune-telling and divination. Now I can use this divination plate. We can go out with Gu Yulang to find a temporary stall, do fortune-telling and divination, and make a living. Bendeo thanked her and said, "It all depends on my wife's wisdom and ability." At that moment, they took some money and went with Gu Yulang to find a divination stall in Nanhuazi. They bought some paper, ink, brushes, and inkstones, hung up a signboard, and chose an auspicious day to open the divination shop. They named it the Lady in White. Gu Yulang accompanied the couple to sit there. After half a day, he went back first. They didn't have any business that day, nor the next day. By the afternoon of the day after that, they still didn't have any business. The woman looked at her husband and said, "We haven't had any business for 3 consecutive days. Do you understand? Someone must have offended me. Go and see what's going on and come back to tell me." Bendeo stood up and looked around both the left and right sides of Wazi, but there was nothing unusual. When he walked out of Wazi, he saw a group of people gathered on the main street. Bendeo walked to the outside of the crowd and took a look. He saw a Taoist priest holding a medicine ladle in his hand and beginning to speak. There is a small peak standing 5 li away. It knows the directions of north, south, west and east. How many lost travelers are there in the world? If not guided, they won't return to the right path. Dear readers, listen up, I am a cultivator from Wanggu Mountain. I have 3 things to do after leaving Wanggu Mountain and coming to Zhengzhou. All you kind-hearted gentlemen here, listen to me. First, I have cultivated for 13 years in the mountain and successfully refined a furnace of potent pills to save people in the future. Second, I came to look for a certain thing. Third, I am here to save all the people in Zhengzhou city. When everyone heard this, they were all surprised. Before the Taoist priest finished speaking, he laughed loudly and said, "Many of you gentlemen haven't bought my medicine yet, but you've already seen this thing. Do you know where it is?" Looking outside the crowd, he waved his hand and said, "Young man, come in here." Bendeo looked at the Taoist priest. The Taoist priest said, "Come here. I want to talk to you." Bendeo was so scared that he hurriedly followed the Taoist priest in. The Taoist priest clapped his hands and said, "You can save all the people in Zhengzhou city. I've seen that thing. Where is it? This young man is it?" Everyone was surprised. How could this young man be a thing? The Taoist priest said, "Listen to me. Young man, there is a black aura between your eyebrows. You are haunted by evil spirits. Tell me the truth." Bendeo told the Taoist priest everything about how he met the woman before. The Taoist priest said, "Everyone is here. This thing is that woman. I will save you. He took out a talisman from the yellow cloth bag on the ground and gave it to Bendeo. Now you go back, go to the room first, pretend to be drunk and go to sleep. When the woman comes back in the evening and sleeps until the third watch, put this talisman on her, and you'll see her true form. After hearing what the Taoist priest said, Bendeo didn't go back to the divination shop but returned to the inn, opened the door of the room, and pretended to be drunk and went to sleep. It turned out that when the woman didn't see Bendeo come back, in the evening, she closed the divination shop by herself. She came back feeling irritable and asked Gu Yulang, "Has my husband come back?" Gu Yulang said, "The master got drunk early and went to sleep in the room." The woman laughed loudly and said, "So that's it." She entered the room, saw Bendeo, and gave a loud shout. Bendeo was startled. The woman said angrily, "This is really unreasonable. We've been husband and wife for so long. What have I done to let you down? Yet you believe others and try to make us quarrel. I told you to go and see if someone offended the divination shop, which made me have no business for 3 days. But you believed that beggar Taoist's words, pretended to be drunk and went to sleep, and were told to put a talisman on me to see my true form. I am the daughter of Governor Qi. How could I be an evil spirit? Yet you believe such groundless words and want to harm me. If you take out this talisman nicely, we can still be husband and wife. If you don't take it out, we'll part ways right now." Bendeo took out the talisman from his bosom and gave it to the woman. They arranged for dinner and ate. They slept for 1 night. The next morning, after having breakfast, just as they were about to go out, the woman said, "Wait a moment. I won't open the divination shop today. I'll go with you to find that beggar Taoist. I'll ask him what his reason is for giving you a talisman to stir up trouble between me and my husband. And secondly, I'll go and see how I can compete with him in magic." The two of them walked to the main street. Bendeo led her to the front of Nanwazi and saw a group of people surrounding the Taoist priest. The Taoist priest was talking with great enthusiasm. The woman pushed through the crowd and shouted, "You beggar Taoist! You're just a wild beggar, yet you used a talisman to make trouble between me and my husband. You told him to put it on me to see my true form." The woman clapped her hands and said, "I am the daughter of the former Governor Qi. You all know my father. How dare you say that I am an evil spirit? If you have magic skills, beat me in front of everyone. If I have magic skills, I'll beat you." When the Taoist priest saw this, he was very angry. He picked up his sword and aimed at the woman's head to strike. The onlookers thought that the Taoist priest was going to hurt the woman. But as soon as the Taoist priest struck with the sword, the woman pointed her hand, and everyone let out a shout and were all stunned. There is a poem to prove this. Last night the east wind rose from the void, the alchemy furnace had no fire and the wine cups were few. The man hasn't fulfilled his lifelong ambition, and sometimes he lights the lamp to read the ancient books. The woman pointed her hand and shouted, "Hit." Then the Taoist priest couldn't lower his sword and couldn't lift his hand. The woman said, "My husband and I had nothing wrong. He gave me a talisman to deal with me, but it couldn't do anything to me. What do you have to say today?" The Taoist priest could only say, "I beg you, madam, to forgive me. I didn't think clearly for a moment and annoyed you. I hope you'll forgive me." Everyone laughed and came to persuade the woman. The woman said, "For the sake of everyone here, I'll forgive you, you beggar Taoist." The woman mumbled some incantations, and the sword immediately fell to the ground. Everyone laughed loudly. The Taoist priest pushed through the crowd and left. Before the crowd had dispersed, the Taoist priest came back again. Did he want to deal with the woman? It turned out that he came back to get his sword. Then the Taoist priest left. After that, the woman in the divination shop was so busy from morning till night that she was surrounded by people. She was doing fortune-telling, divination, writing spells and using water with spells, and didn't even have time to eat snacks. Thus, she became famous. Suddenly one day, a man led a sedan chair and came to invite the young lady, saying, "I am a servant of Lord Zhao Anfu, the governor of Zhengzhou. Now the young master is ill and hasn't recovered for a long time. According to the order, I'm here to invite the young lady to go with me in the sedan chair." The woman gave instructions to her husband and told him to go back to the inn. The woman got into the sedan chair. When she arrived, Lord Zhao Anfa led her into the garden. She saw the young master in the pavilion, talking to himself, and the smell of wine was very strong. The group of people stood by the corner gate of the garden and watched the lady in white perform magic. After she finished chanting the incantations, a strong wind blew up. It comes without shape or shadow and goes without being noticed. It blows the flowers open and blows them off, all at its will. For no reason, it secretly passes over the flower branches. To whom does it steal the fragrance and send it? When the wind passed, a woman in yellow clothes was seen, looking very angry. She shouted, "Who dares to deal with me?" When she saw the lady in white, she bowed deeply and said, "So it's my younger sister." The lady in white said, "Where did you come from, elder sister, falling from the sky?" The woman said, "Younger sister, why are you here?" The lady in white said, "I was invited by Lord Zhao Anfa to save the young master and get rid of the evil spirit." When the woman heard this, she gritted her teeth in anger and said, "You can't even save your husband, let alone save an outsider." With a gust of wind, the woman in yellow clothes disappeared. The lady in white saved the young master in the garden. Lord Zhao Anfa rewarded her with gifts and sent someone to bring them to Gu Yulang's inn. When she arrived at the inn, she gave some money to the person who brought the gifts and sent him away. She asked Gu Yulang, "Is my husband in the room?" Gu Yulang said, "I'd like to tell you, young lady." A woman in yellow clothes came into the room, carried the master away, lifted the skylight, and flew towards the southwest. The lady in white said, "It doesn't matter." Then she shouted, "Rise." She stepped on a cloud on the ground and rose up to chase the woman in yellow clothes. She seemed to catch up and shouted, "Give me back my husband." When the woman in yellow clothes saw her chasing, she shouted, "Fall." She put down Lu Bendeo and then competed in magic with the lady in white. Bendeo didn't care about his wife and just ran by himself. He ran to the front of a temple. When he was exhausted, he saw a monk standing at the gate of the temple. Bendeo asked, "Master, can I borrow the upper room to rest for a while?" The monk said, "I'm very busy today. There is a donor coming to the temple to offer food to the monks." Just as they were talking, they saw several loads of firewood, several barrels of sauce, several loads of rice, and also incense, candles, paper offerings and the money for the donation. Looking from a distance, under the parasol, there was a person. It was the one wearing a round-headed light gauze hat, a wide-sleeved green silk robe and less than 3 feet tall. When Bendeo saw this, he ran away in a panic. But the donor caught up with him and grabbed him, saying, "You're the one who hit me with a punt pole. This time you've fallen into my hands. I'm just going to take out your heart and liver to go with my wine." Bendeo was in a very dangerous situation. Just then, the lady in white rushed to the front of the temple. When she saw that person, she shouted, "Brother, don't be angry. He is my husband." Before she finished speaking, the woman in yellow clothes also came and shouted to that person, "Brother, don't listen to him. How can he be her real husband? Since he hit you, we sisters are all his enemies." Pulling and dragging, the 4 of them got into a mess. Just as they couldn't stop arguing, an old man came out of the temple and shouted loudly, "You beasts! Don't be rude." He shouted, "Transform." The woman in yellow clothes turned into a yellow deer, the man in the green robe turned into a green-haired spirit turtle, the woman in white clothes turned into a white crane. The old man was the god of longevity. He rode the white crane and rose up. Bendeo also mounted the yellow deer and followed the god of longevity. The spirit turtle led the way, and they rose up into the sky. Lu Bendeo was originally an immortal official who served as the secretary in the Department of Longevity. Because he liked to play with the crane, the deer, and the turtle and was lazy about his official duties, he was demoted to the mortal world as a poor scholar. When his term of demotion was over, the god of longevity from the South Pole led him back to the heavens. That temple was called the Temple of the God of Longevity, and it was located on the Sunyang River in Zhengzhou. The ancient site still remains. There is a poem that says, "He was originally an immortal official who wasn't contaminated by the filth of the mortal world, and he could be a neighbor to the graceful crane and deer." The immortals are reluctant to explain clearly, and how many people in the mortal world have been misled.